Welcome to T News 9 channel. Today, we're bringing you chapter 21 of The Cases That Wait, titled At Home. The house was quiet when I walked in. Not peaceful quiet, careful quiet. Dinner sat on the counter, untouched. My daughter's shoes were by the door, lined up perfectly, exactly the way my wife liked them. It was a kind of forced order, pretending nothing was wrong. My wife didn't ask about the case. That was new. Instead, she asked if I'd eaten. I said no. She just nodded, like she'd expected that answer all along. We sat at the table, but not facing each other. The silence in our kitchen felt heavier, more suffocating than in any interrogation room I'd ever been in. I saw him today, she said finally, her voice cutting through the tension. Who? I asked, though I think I already knew. The man helping with the search. I froze. My fork hovered over my plate. He's very kind, she continued, her voice steady. He brought over some food. He even stayed late. I just waited, listening. She asked me why you don't like him. Who? Our daughter. The words landed harder than any accusation could have. Children notice tone long before they understand logic. I don't dislike him, I said, but it wasn't true. The truth was, I was afraid of him, and fear is so much easier to feel than it is to explain. My daughter looked up from her plate, her eyes wide and serious. Is Evan coming home? She asked, her small voice full of hope. I didn't answer right away. Lies are fast, but the truth takes time to find its words. I don't know, I said, finally. She nodded, accepting the uncertainty in a way most adults never can. Later that night, my wife stood at the sink, her back to me. She didn't turn around. Promise me something, she said. What? If you're wrong about him, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Be wrong gently. I didn't make the promise, because deep down, I wasn't sure I could keep it. Upstairs, my daughter was asleep with the light on. I turned it off halfway, leaving just enough light to see by, just enough to feel safe. And then the voice returned, faint but clear inside my head. This isn't just a case anymore. I knew that was the problem. The truth doesn't ask who it hurts. It just asks if you'll keep going. Chapter 22 from the novel. The Cases That Wait. People lie about their actions, but time rarely does. I rebuilt that day, minute by minute. Not from memory, but from clocks. School dismissal was at 3:12 p.m. The last confirmed sighting of Evan was at 3:18. That's just 6 minutes. That was all the time he had to completely disappear. It's too short for a panic, too short for force to be used, but it's long enough for trust. I mapped out his route from school again. The sidewalk, the crosswalk, the trail entrance. There were no blind corners, no isolated spots, except for one, a maintenance path not marked on any map. Not fenced off, used only by park staff and volunteers. I immediately checked who had access. I looked at key logs, work schedules, and daily habits. The park helper, a regular volunteer, had signed in at 2:45 p.m. and left at 4:10 p.m. No one ever questioned that time window. Why? Because he was useful, and being useful often makes you invisible. A voice in my head returned, sharp and precise. Opportunity isn't just about time, it's about permission. I went back over the witness statements. They all contradicted each other. One child said Evan had stopped to talk to someone. Another said they saw a man kneeling down. The adults dismissed these details. They forgot that children remember angles and shapes, not motives. So I replayed those 6 minutes in my mind again. If Evan trusted this person, there would have been no struggle, no noise, no witnesses would have noticed anything out of the ordinary. I pulled the phone records. No calls were made during that critical window. Control doesn't require distraction. It requires confidence. Then I found something interesting. The helper's digital watch showed it had been reset. The battery was replaced the very next day. A coincidence feels very different when it starts to repeat itself. I walked over to the whiteboard and wrote a single line, 3:18 to 3:24. That was the truth. Everything else in this case just orbited that small window of time. The case didn't need a confession. Not yet. It needed pressure. And pressure always begins with time. He didn't steal a child. He borrowed 6 minutes. Chapter 23. Applying pressure. You don't corner predators. You make their world smaller. We didn't knock on his door. Not yet. Instead, we moved everything around him. Search zones shifted, quietly. The main trail was closed for maintenance. The river reopened. Hope was redirected. Volunteers were reassigned, not fired, but watched. The helper noticed. People like him always do. Their control depends on their awareness. The voice on the phone returned, calm. Pressure works best when it feels accidental. So, we released a partial timeline. Nothing accusatory, just a simple block of time. 6 minutes missing. No names, no theories. He showed up at the station that afternoon, uninvited. That mattered. People with nothing to hide wait to be called. He didn't. I heard you had questions, he said. He was friendly, concerned, prepared. I thanked him for coming in. I asked about logistics, not about the victim. Evan, he answered easily. To easily then. He started filling the silence with stories, explaining where he was, why he was there, and who he was with. None of that had been asked. Alibis volunteer themselves when they feel thin. I changed the subject. I asked about watches, maintenance paths, volunteer protocols. His smile tightened. Just for a millisecond, it wasn't fear, it was calculation. The voice on the phone sharpened. He's tracking the trap. We ended the conversation early. That surprised him. Predators expect attention. They hate being dismissed. That night, patrol logged him circling the closed trail. Twice he had no reason to be there. He offered no explanation. Pressure doesn't accuse, it just narrows the space. By morning, his routine had changed. He started arriving earlier, leaving later. That's not helping, that's guarding something. I wrote the word again in my notes. Access. We were close, not legally, but behaviorally. And behavior always breaks before words do. He didn't ask what we knew. He was trying to see what we changed. Chapter 24. The mistake. He said one word too early. We didn't push him. We just waited. You see, pressure makes people hurry themselves. And soon enough, he came back. This time, he had a reason. I remembered something, he said. Funny thing is, memory doesn't usually work on command. Guilt, on the other hand, does. He sat down without being asked. Just claimed a seat right there in the interview room. Ownership is a powerful habit, isn't it? I let him talk. He started describing the trail, the maintenance path, the small gap in the fence. His description was far too precise, like he'd walked it just yesterday. Evan stopped near the marker. He said, I looked up from my notes. Which marker? I asked. He answered without a pause, the yellow one. Here's the thing, there were 3 markers along that trail. Only one was yellow, and we hadn't released that detail to the public. Silence just filled the room, heavy and thick. He smiled, but it was too late, and he knew it. He tried to adjust, backtracking. I mean, someone must have mentioned it online. No one had. We checked. The forum logs were completely clean. That little voice in my head spoke up again, clear and final. He's choosing details now. I kept my face a perfect blank mask. I just wrote, people often confess when they're trying to fix a lie. He kept going, trying to fill the quiet. He explained how easy it could be to miss a child, even in broad daylight. Who would notice? Who wouldn't? It was theory disguised as observation. Predators love to explain opportunity. Investigators, we explain evidence. I ended the interview right there, mid-sentence. That completely broke his rhythm. Outside, he stood on the sidewalk for a long time, as if he was waiting for permission to leave. He didn't get it from us. I watched him walk away. He was still free, yes, but he was no longer invisible. We had exactly what we needed. It wasn't a confession, not yet. It was a fracture, a tiny crack in his story that we could now break wide open. He didn't reveal the crime. He revealed his memory. Chapter 25 of the novel, The Cases That Wait, titled Evidence. The truth doesn't argue, it just stays. We searched quietly. No sirens, no big announcements. You see, quiet searches are what find honest things. The official story was that the maintenance path was closed. But unofficially, we walked it again. This time, slower. We looked lower, really scanning the ground. Near that little yellow marker from before, the ground felt different. Not disturbed, like someone had dug it up, but pressed down. Footprints can fade, but the impression of weight, that sticks around. And then we saw it. Fibers, bright red, synthetic, like from a cheap jacket. The kind of jacket a child might wear. You know, those jackets don't just tear from normal wear and tear. They tear when they're pulled. I carefully sealed the fibers in a bag. I didn't even label it yet. Evidence like this, it deserves patience. Just behind the marker, tucked under a loose stone, we found a watch. It wasn't Evan's. It was a digital one, the kind issued to the search volunteers. I checked the battery. It was brand new, replaced just yesterday. I didn't even need to look up the serial number. I already knew whose it was. That voice, the one from the interview, came back to me, calm and steady. He tried to control time. We pulled the vehicle logs for the area. Sure enough, his car passed the trail entrance twice, right during those critical 6 minutes. The first time, it was moving slowly. The second time, faster. It was all too deliberate to be a coincidence. With a court order in hand, we went to his home and searched the garage. Our team moved with careful hands, respecting the space but missing nothing. Tucked away in a box simply labeled tools, we found something that didn't belong. A child's shoelace. It was clean. Almost too clean. It had been washed. You don't wash trash. You wash away a memory you're trying to hide. Later, I sat in my office with all the evidence spread out before me. The red fibers, the watch, the vehicle logs, the washed shoelace. None of it screamed violence, and that was exactly the point. Predators, the meticulous ones, they don't improvise. They minimize risk. They plan every detail. I closed the case folder. This wasn't just circumstantial evidence anymore. It was a map, and every single piece of it pointed in one direction. He didn't leave behind a scene of chaos. He left a trail of control.